most important one whom we have to see is Pietro Pomponazzi. Pietro Pomponazzi. The importance of some of the people that we are going to look at is there are some of the Aristotelian philosophers. There are some of the Aristotelian philosophers who read Aristotle for reasons scientific and secular. For scientific and secular reasons, they were reading Aristotle. Towards the end of the medieval period, the Aristotelian philosophy becomes important, especially with Saint Thomas Aquinas. But what we find is they are all reading Aristotle in the context of their religious doctrine, in order to interpret the religious doctrines. They use the Aristotelian method in order to interpret the religious doctrine. But here, scholars started studying Aristotle for scientific or secular reasons, with no direct interest in religion or theology. So, no religious questions or theological questions was of their concern. They were more scientific and secular in their approach. That is the importance of this guy, Pietro Pomponazzi. So, he is one of the most important and influential Aristotelian philosophers of the Renaissance. He developed his views entirely within the framework of natural philosophy. Natural philosophy, that's about scientific way of understanding nature. So, he developed his views entirely within the framework of natural philosophy. So, there are some books written by him. De Immortalitate Anime. In English, Treatise on the Immortality of the Soul in 1516. Treatise on the Immortality of the Soul. This book is very important because in that book he is arguing from the Aristotelian context that the question is whether there is a soul that is eternally living. Will the soul survive after the death of the body? There is soul and body according to their understanding. So will the soul survive after the body is dead? That was the question. So, from the Aristotelian text, Pomponazzi is making an argument. So, he says the proof for intellect's ability to survive after the death of the body must be found in the activity of the intellect and its function without any dependence of the body. So, this is the thing. The soul consists of the intellect. So, he says if the intellect is said to, if you need to prove that intellect will survive after the death of the body, you have to show the function of the intellect after your body is dead or without the help of the body. If your intellect can function without the help of your body, okay, the soul exists even after the body is dead. And he says the highest activity of the intellect is to attain the universals. When we learned the ancient philosophy, we looked at the universal and particular, the concept of universal and particular. So there is a particular man, Antony sitting here. There are different men, particular individuals in the class. All of you are there. But the concept of man, that is universal. So when I say a man, it is not a particular man. It is a concept of man which is universal. Whether it is woman. Woman is a concept. Pratigya, Tejasvi, all those names, they are individual women, individual woman. But there is a concept of woman which is universal. So to arrive at a concept like that or to attain the concept of the universal is the highest activity of the intellect according to Pietro Pomponazzi. In order to attain that universal, which is the highest activity of the intellect, you need your senses. In order to arrive at the assumption or in order to arrive at the concept of man or woman, which is a universal concept, you need to see a man. You need to listen to them. You need to understand them in different ways. For that, you need your senses. Senses are a part of your body, and when your body is dead, you will not be able to use your senses any longer. And he claimed that the mediation of the senses is required in order to arrive or attain the universal. Without body, you cannot have your senses functioning, so that you will not be able to do the activity of arriving at the universal by your soul alone or intellect alone. For that reason, he asserted that soul will not survive after the body is dead. The soul also dies with the body. The soul also dies with the body. So that was his teaching. Therefore, based solely on the philosophical premises of Aristotelian principles, the conclusion is that the entire soul dies with the body. When you hear it today, it is not a matter to be worried. But to say that in those days, it was so daring a thing. Because to say that in a world which was built with religious dogmas, it was very difficult to say such a thing. It was a very bold or very courageous step to adopt a methodology to examine things in the belief system and to make a judgment or arrive at a conclusion like that was very, very daring at that point of time. And consequently, Pomponatius' treatise aroused violent opposition and led to a spate of books written against him. So he wrote a book, De Immortalitate Anime, a treatise on the immortality of the soul, and there are so many books that were written against this book in order to prove that he is wrong. After a while in 1520, he published another book, De Naturalium Effectum Causis Sive De Incantationibus, on the causes of natural effects or incantations, published in 1520. This was a book concerning with the popular belief in miracles. Miracles as produced by angels or demons. So there were certain supernatural things that they were able to see in their daily life. So when there is something supernatural, they believe that it is a miracle worked by an angel or demon. If it's a good thing, or it's a miracle by an angel. If it is a bad thing, it's a miracle by demons. That belief was his target in this book. De Naturalium Effectum Causis Sive De Incantationibus. So the main target was the popular belief that miracles are produced by angels or demons. So in his book he excluded all supernatural explanations from the domain of nature. In the domain of nature, nothing supernatural can happen. And he established that it is possible to explain any extraordinary events that are happening around, which are commonly regarded as miracles, in terms of concatenation of natural causes. Concatenation of natural causes means concatenation means a series of interconnected events. Maybe something is happening here. You may not be understanding why it happened, so you consider it as a miracle. He says no. If you examine that event very thoroughly, you will understand that there was a cause which you did not identify. And if you analyze that cause, there will be some other thing that caused it. So there are interconnected events which is finally causing something which seemingly appears to be a miracle. So he excluded all supernatural explanations from the domain of nature. And he said a series of interconnected things would be able to explain such supernatural things which people generally regard as miracles. And there is another book again, De Fato, De Libero, Arbitrio et the Predestinatione. So these are 5 books on fate, free will and predestination. It was not published in his lifetime. It was printed very later in 1567. Printing press is already there. So when they published something like this, they were able to print it and it was accessible to more people. If you consider the IT revolution of the modern times, it can be equated to that invention of printing press. So earlier there was no way to, they were copying text, and in order to preserve text they were copying in the monasteries and such places, and only limited number of texts were available and text was a luxury. But when printing started, they were able to send it to more and more people. Not as we understand today. If today even with a press of a button you can reach so many people, that was not the case anyway, but something similar. it was a very drastic change that happened in the field of media, in the field of communication, the printing press. Something similar is the IT revolution that happened in the modern times. So this is the third book, and there is always a philosophical problem of evil and free will. If I am free to do something, then how can I say that everything is determined already? So there is always a belief that everything is determined already. What I would do today, how I will die, how I will live, all these things are written. हमारा सिर पे जो रेखा बनाया है वैसे चलेगा हम. Whatever you do, you cannot change your fate. It is all determined. So there is a belief in determinism or fate. But there is also another thing we experience, free will. So today morning I woke up, so I chose to come to the college. If I chose not to come to the college and do some other work which is urgent, so that is my choice. I have two things to choose between, or many things to choose in between. So I choose what to do. I choose where to go. So there is a free will which all human beings enjoy. So if it is all determined, what is this free will? If you are free, what is determinism? How can we say that it is all determined? This was a very important problem during the Renaissance period. He considered this issue and discusses whether the human will can be actually free, and he considers the conflicting points of view of philosophical determinism and Christian theology. Okay, this is about Pietro Pomponazzi.